I do try to keep these Monday night calls relatively short, so it's not an extensive class tonight. I will make sure at the end to give references for more learning, some other resources that I use. And at some point tonight, Katie, I'll just ask you when to jump in. My internet is being weird, so I'm going to turn off the video and hopefully that will help. If y'all don't mind, save questions for the end for me to not be super distracted with the chat. But of course, I'm always a fan of just group sourcing. So as I mentioned something, especially if you have a history with healing your thyroid or a product that works for you, I always love for y'all to share that in the chat. And so we can help one another with that. So obligatory disclaimer that tonight is just information shared for educational purposes only. I am not coming at you tonight trying to diagnose, treat, or cure. I'm not coming as a medical professional, really just wanting to share with you my story, Katie's story, some things that worked for us, and to give you guys some insight and ideas on how to support the thyroid. So we are going to try to keep this to 30 minutes. Here's a little outline of what you can expect. And like I said, at the end, I'll give a couple more references for some more. So if you don't know me, my name is Haley Ayleth. I'm a mama to 3 healthy littles. You would not know from this picture that I struggled with fertility for 7 years, and my thyroid is a huge part of that story, that testimony. My husband and I both needed healing in certain areas of our body. But my healing was not overnight, and it was not just physical, it was emotional too. My thyroid, when I was a newlywed, I was right in the middle of midwifery school. And I was commuting 5 hours a week to school. I was a full-time apprentice, which means, you're working for no money. I was launching my doula practice. What I was doing was I was a birth worker. So I was apprenticing with midwives. And if you know anything about birth, babies are always born at night, right? So I'm trying to get my numbers. I'm trying to, be a good apprentice. So I was doing sometimes 10 births a month and just leaving in the middle of the night, staying up for 24 hours. It was a high stress job. It's crazy that I still do birth work to this day, but I've learned how to manage it and not burn out. But during that window of time, it was about a course of a year, I had unexplained weight gain. I had all these issues going on, sleep. And I realized, wow, I really shot my adrenal glands and my thyroid was suffering. So I went on a little journey of healing my thyroid. I was actually diagnosed in 2014 with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune where your thyroid in your body is actually attacking itself. It's very unnatural. I worked with a NAPRO medical doctor who did not believe that this could be reversed and wanted me to get on medication. And I was so young, and I said, I really just want to try to give my body the right tools. I believe that I can get my DNA back to that blueprint if I nourish what needs to be nourished and change some things. For me, stress was actually the main thing. It wasn't this toxicity overload. We'll talk about some culprits, but for me, it was the lifestyle change that I really needed to make. So with about 6 months of eating autoimmune protocol or AIP, which is really eating low foods that are low inflammatory foods, completely avoiding things like gluten and alcohol, eliminating stressors, moving my body. I actually got that diagnosis completely reversed. It was such a miracle, lots of prayer and belief and speaking life. The doctor actually couldn't believe it and made me retest several times. I don't see this. I'm not really sure about this. Did a lot of research on hormone health. And so some of the things that I did, I'm going to share with you tonight. So I am a leader of a team of over 20,000 people. Every Monday night, or most Mondays, we do a call in all sorts of different topics. So we haven't done a thyroid call in years. And so I'm really excited for this. Okay, real quick about the thyroid gland. So it's right here. It's a small gland it's a butterfly shaped because it has these 2 lobes kind of located at the base of your neck. It is right around your voice box. This is a very important gland. It has significant impact on your body, obviously regulating hormones. For women trying to conceive, it's actually one of the number one issues of causes of infertility. It's easily misdiagnosed. We'll talk about that in a minute, just the range of what a typical screen can look like. But this gland regulates things like your body temperature, your metabolism, your mood, your energy. It's really important for women 25 to 45 to support this gland, but especially before, during, and after pregnancy. Pregnancy is a natural state where different organs are taxed. And so if you already have a body part, a system of the body, an organ of the body that's not fully nourished or not really functioning to its potential, pregnancy is going to reveal that. Postpartum is really going to reveal that. So that group of women really need to focus on this. And like I mentioned, so many other parts of the body that this is also going to affect: your digestion, progesterone, cortisol, different hormones, things like that. Okay, Katie, do you want to jump in and tell a little bit of your story right here?
Yeah, thanks for letting me come hang out with you guys for just a couple minutes. I just want to kind of share from somebody who has had a background of thyroid issues. And I was one of those ones that went undiagnosed. So Haley and I, we have slightly different stories. She had the full-on Hashimoto's diagnosis. And I had this like mystery situation happening where, you know, primarily my like difficult symptoms were, I was really tired all the time. So just no energy. That's kind of a common one, right? Definitely not sleeping as well as I could be. But I think the most dramatic issue that I had was I was sick a ton. And a lot of people don't necessarily correlate their thyroid with immune function, but boy, does it affect it. And when I was sick a ton, I mean, like every month I got something and then I would have it for 2 to 3 weeks and I would get better just in time to get sick again. And so I got really well acquainted with natural ways to heal sickness because I had to do it so often. But ideally, I just didn't want to constantly be sick. And so with some of these symptoms happening, I, went to a doctor and had some blood work done. And I was just looking for like anything, like talk to me about fatigue. I definitely had some digestive difficulty happening too. And the blood work came back and the MD was like, everything looks good. And how many of you like comment in the chat if you've had that where you're like, what do you mean everything looks good? I have all these symptoms. Like, this is ridiculous, right? It just feels so like hopeless and frustrating when you have a doctor tell you that all your blood work checks out. And it's almost like I want a diagnosis so that I can heal it, right? I don't want to have something like I don't want that negativity, but I also don't want to keep having mysterious symptoms. And so I took the exact same blood panel results to a naturopathic doctor, and she looked over them and picked out like 4 different things that really weren't doing well in my body, one of which was my thyroid. And I was like, thank you for finding something that I can now pinpoint. Like I can target this in my nutrition and in my health. And for the thyroid specifically, I immediately got on a couple of things from Young Living, and I'll tell you what those are in a second. But I just want to encourage you that if you are like me and you have had a doctor look at blood work and say, you're fine, and you're just feeling that discouragement, I want to encourage you to look for a naturopathic, holistic type doctor in your area. And even if you just have one visit where you say, can you look over my blood work and see if there's anything that is weak or struggling, right? And the reason for that is because the Western medical community tends to have an extremely wide range of what's acceptable for any given part of your body, not just the thyroid. And so in this case, they'll look at your thyroid numbers. And even if you're like right at the base before they would diagnose you as hypothyroid or Hashimoto's, if you're right before that, they won't say to you generally like, oh, it's a little struggling. Maybe you should take a supplement. Like in my experience anyway, it was like, check, your thyroid's not a problem. Check, move on, next, who's next in line, right? And so then you're left like really discouraged. But my naturopath was like, dude, you're on the really low side. Your thyroid's really struggling. And I started on a couple of things, and I'm telling you, I had multiple infections every year, strep throat year round, urinary tract infections, sinus infections that felt like all winter long. And once I started on Hashimoto's, excuse me. Once I started on this particular couple of supplements I'll tell you about, they went away and my immune system became top notch. So if you're discouraged, you're in that place, don't be discouraged. There's great things you can experiment with to see if you can support your body. So really quickly, let me tell you what I used. So Thyromin is the key. So there's 3 things I'll tell you really quickly. But yeah, so on the screen here, you guys will see Thyromin. And I'm just gonna, so there's great ones here. For the sake of me being brief and giving the mic back to Haley, I'm just gonna mention 3 that were particularly helpful for me. So Thyromin is a supplement specifically designed to nourish the thyroid, balance your metabolism, help you like reduce fatigue. And it contains a combination of specific glandular nutrients, herbs, and amino acids and minerals and essential oils, all of which are designed to have that therapeutic nutritional support for the thyroid. And so I never got on medication for my thyroid, even though she said, oh, you're super low, you could totally get a medication. I was like, I don't want one. Let me try this thing that I already know about. And I started on Thyromin. And that was, for me, like the biggest difference maker. I went from having poor energy to fantastic energy. Obviously, it was an experiment to see if I wouldn't get sick, but I like halted on the infections. And I don't know if I've had an infection since then. This was like 7 years ago, but I used to get them constantly. I would get sick all the time. I rarely get sick now. So Thyromin is a hero to me. I will sing its praises forever. I still use it off and on, just depending on the season of life I'm in and discerning what my body needs. Ningxia Red is the second one I'll say, is just a super food for all functions of your body, for immune function, for mental health, for reducing inflammation. And the nutrients and the minerals and the amino acids are just going to be extra supportive to your thyroid. But also the clinical studies on Ningxia showed a 34% increase in energy levels. And everyone with a struggling thyroid can testify energy levels is a big deal, right? And then the last thing that I will say is Endoflex essential oil has become such a hero in our house. Not only have I used it and loved it, but like small sidebar for Endoflex, we're using it on my preteen daughter who's like knocking on the door of her, menstruation coming soon. And the weeks that we're faithful with that, she's a very different human. When we forget Endoflex for a week or two, it's like, oh my gosh, we woke the beast. Like, I don't know what happened. So we're seeing like live and in action how beautifully Endoflex balances those hormones. And we actually apply it right over the thyroid because it's just a great nutrient source. So you guys are welcome to ask questions later if you have them, or shoot me a message if you want to talk more. But those 3 have been heroes to me. Super B is also amazing. I'll let kind of Haley touch on that. But really, really cool options to have natural healing in your body and not necessarily have to run for those medications if it is what you want to avoid. Obviously, that's totally up to you. But we do have friends who have used Thyromin and these others in conjunction with their medication. That's up to you, your doctor, and Jesus, right? And we've had people use this instead of or to wean off of their medication. Again, this is all for you guys to kind of discern what feels best for you. But it's been a game changer for me. So I hope that the little story gives you hope, because sometimes we need a seed of hope when we're struggling, right? All right, you guys, thanks so much for letting me come on and share.
So good, Katie. And just to confirm, you were dealing with hypothyroid, is that correct?
Yes, not hyper. I was
Okay.
hypo, like most people. Yeah.
Yes, like most people. And I appreciate that, because Thyromin is obviously it's a supplement specifically made for thyroid support, but it's one of the few I never took. So I'd love to hear a personal testimony. And I do hear that from several people who have hypo. So thank you. Well, let me talk through just some of these things with you guys. And I'm going to talk to you about some things that you should absolutely avoid, and maybe some things that could help, some at-home tests, and kind of try to figure out what could be going on. Okay, so goiter, this is a really common issue with the thyroid gland. This is when your thyroid is very enlarged and swollen. This can actually happen for a number of reasons. One of the most common reasons is lack of iodine. In the US, the Midwest is actually called the goiter belt because they have less iodine in their diet than people on the coast. I know years ago they used to fortify salt with iodine and it seemed to help a lot of people, but of course now salt's been damaged and toxic if it's not in its pure state. So for other reasons, people avoid it. So I know we're not really sure if the Midwest is getting what it needs to get, but iodine is we're going to talk about that next, but that's usually a huge culprit. Obviously, like I mentioned, pregnancy, you can get tested during pregnancy. I think a lot of people figure out that they're having thyroid issues that year after having a baby. So a woman feels like super, super tired and dragging, and maybe that problem's been going on for years and they blame the baby or postpartum, but it's beyond that. And pregnancy can kind of be that stressor that broke the camel's back, because if you're in a nutritional crisis and you're lacking essential nutrients, pregnancy is just going to put that stressor on those organs. So the job of the thyroid is to make thyroid hormones, right, which increase the metabolism of the body. The higher thyroid hormones you have, higher temperature, higher heart rate, higher fat burning. So all of this has to do with energy. It has to do with how much you're producing and using for each of your cells. Of course, there's other things that affect your metabolism. Your adrenals play a huge role in the creation of energy. I'll talk about adrenals in a little bit too. So compared to other organs in your body, like your heart, for instance, your thyroid is pretty weak. So it will actually give up easily if it's overtaxed. If it's got a toxic overload or if it's stressed, it starts shutting down production pretty quickly. And when your thyroid gets stressed, it'll kind of back off and quit producing those hormones. So what most women deal with is hypothyroidism. And that's what Katie was mentioning. And that just means that your body is not producing enough thyroid hormones. So this is, you're sluggish, you might have cold hands and feet, and like literally cold from the inside. You might have low metabolism, easily gain weight, have a hard time losing weight. Those are all signs that your thyroid is not producing what it needs to. You can do an at-home test for this. You can wake up first thing in the morning, and I'm talking like before you stand up, before you drink anything, keep an accurate thermometer next to your bedside, take your temperature. After about 4 weeks, even if you miss a couple of days, you're still going to get a pretty accurate read of your temperature. What you'll notice for menstruating women in the first half of your cycle, so the first day of your period through ovulation, you're going to have a very similar baseline temperature that maybe bumps up like a point or like a point of a degree or two. After ovulation, that temperature should go up about a degree, maybe two. So about after 4 weeks, and for postmenopausal women, it's just going to be the same. It should just be the same. This is a really good way to see what's going on. If you are about 97 degrees and under, that's cold. That's a very good sign that you're dealing with hypothyroidism. Obviously, this isn't like going to be the most accurate test. It's a great starting point. And I want to empower you. Take this, and I'll give you one more test you can do at home. Take this to your doctor that you're working with. And when you request labs, ask for more than just the baseline screening. So this is what Katie's talking about. This is why it is so highly underdiagnosed, is because when you look at a baseline screen, you're getting the average of every person in the populace, whether they're really, quote, healthy or not, right? I heard a doctor say a baseline screen, if you're within normal range, that's basically saying you don't need to be checked into the hospital today. It's not saying that you're thriving. It's not saying that all your organs are properly functioning. It's just saying that you're within the normal range of the very unhealthy populace that you're being compared to. So you want to dig deeper than the typical test. The typical thyroid screen, okay, is just testing a hormone called TSH. And this is actually testing a hormone that's made by your pituitary gland. If you were to stick your thumb to the roof of your mouth, that's about as close as I can tell you where your pituitary gland is in your brain. depending on the issue that might be going on with the pituitary, you guys might be able to reset your pituitary literally through the sense of smell. There's some great PubMed articles, but smelling oils, certain essential oils, can actually reach that part of your brain. It's kind of cool. But anyway, TSH is a hormone that basically asks your thyroid to please make more thyroid hormone. Okay. If your thyroid is healthy, it should respond to that. If it's working well, if it has what it's need, it should respond to that by making T4. And I won't get super sciencey with you here and say the full names, but that has 4 molecules on it. Okay. So here's a quick breakdown. So that hormone goes around your body in different cells, especially in your liver. It removes a molecule, and now you get T3, and that's actually the active hormone that your body can use. If your thyroid isn't making enough T4, or if it's lacking nutrients like iodine, or if your liver isn't functioning well to convert it to active T3, those are all ways that the thyroid can break down. Your body can make something called reverse T3. So think about when you are under a lot of stress, your adrenals take action, and they actually, I believe your adrenal glands are what produce reverse T3. So if this is circulating in your body, think of it like a dummy. It goes into the spot that T3 should go to. It doesn't work well, but it goes in that place. So if you have like a high reverse T3 in your labs, that's just from stress alone. That's what I was dealing with. And if you have hypothyroidism, especially if the pituitary and liver are working fine, and you see that you have high reverse T3, that's an indicator that you're just dealing with stress, that your body is just constantly producing this. So when you're requesting labs, and I will give you at the end another lab that you can kind of go do yourself. You want numbers that are related to your TSH, your T4, your T3, and your reverse T3. You want to look at the full spectrum of what's going on, right? Not just that TSH. You want the range that's not just for the populace, but actually go like Google, what is the functional target? Like, what is the ideal range for a functioning thyroid to be healthy? Know these numbers, and I want to empower you to have this information. So when you go in and you say, hey, to your doctor, I'm feeling this, this, and this. You gave me a screen panel. You said my thyroid's working properly. I'm cold. I've got weight I can't shake. I've got all these symptoms. I want a full screen. I want to look at all these different things that's going on in my thyroid, right? And then based off of your research, now you know a better target range, right? The ideal range. So you could be having dysfunction even though your labs are within range. And that's where Katie's testimony comes in, that I think is important, because I think this happens a lot, not just to women, but to men too. Okay. So hypo and hyper, let me go back to where I was. Got to go back to my notes. Sorry, get off rabbit trails. Okay, so hyperthyroidism means that you have too much thyroid hormone. And while it might sound nice that you're having a hard time keeping on weight, it's a very exhausting state to live. You have a high heart rate, high temperature, basically that feeling of too much energy to the point where you can't sleep. I know people that deal with this say that they can feel or like hear their heartbeat when they're laying down at night. So your body is in a state of exhaustion because it's constantly running at this high rate all the time. So those are signs of hyper. And then, of course, like I mentioned, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is what I was dealing with. It actually, some women that have this, they toggle back and forth between hyper and hypo. Their body is just confused. It's not an immune condition where your immune system is turned on the body and it's fighting the body. And like I mentioned, it's a very unnatural state. There's a number of toxicities in our lifestyle and in our world that are the cause of this. But let me be that testimony and just encourage you that we can reverse this when we cleanse our body, when we remove those toxins, when we remove those stressors, and when we give our body what it needs, right? Other things that can happen, scar tissue is pretty common. So if you have swollen tissue, maybe from goiter, sometimes pieces of your gland can actually break off and dissolve into your bloodstream. So basically extra hormone is circulating in your blood. This also can cause hypothyroidism. So lots of different things. There's a little range for you there. Okay. want to talk about iodine real quick, and then a couple of things to avoid. So you want to look at your supply of iodine. Your body needs this to create T4. It cannot make it without it. Food is a great source of iodine, because not only, is iodine helpful for your thyroid, it's also helpful for your breasts, your uterus, men for their testes. All of these organs require 10 times the amount of iodine that your other cells require it. Fun fact, in Japan, they eat ocean-rich food a lot, like fish and seaweed, and they have so much iodine in their diet that the average woman gets 13 micrograms of iodine a day. If you were to take, I don't know if Katie mentioned multigreens, if not, I'll talk about that. But that looks like taking like 2 to 4 multigreens a day to get what those women naturally get in their diet. Let me actually switch over to this. Oh, multigreens isn't even in the picture. That's funny. Okay, well, multigreens. Multigreens is a great source of spirulina. And so if you're not eating a whole bunch of fish, if you don't feel like you have an iodine rich diet, this is where supplementation can come in play. Multigreens, I want to say, is vegetarian, but I know there's bee pollen in it, and I know some vegetarians don't consider that vegetarian. However, bee pollen is a fantastic source of copper, which directly supports your thyroid and your adrenals. It's very, very nurturing spirulina to the thyroid. Like I said, 2 to 4 capsules is going to give you that amount that the average Japanese woman has in her diet. Another fun fact, I read this, that in Japan, they also have the lowest breast cancer rate in the world, and that it's likely correlated to iodine as well, which just makes sense. When you're supporting your body in one way and nourishing it in one way, it can affect other things. Okay, so here's another at-home test you can do. This is actually something that I did. And this is how you know if you need iodine. Do I know if this is something my body actually needs? So you can go online, you can order something called Lugol's iodine. It's like a glass dropper bottle. It should be like a 4-ounce bottle. It should have 2% of Lugol's iodine in it, okay? It's a dark orange color. It will stain your clothes and things, so just be careful. This at-home test is literally as simple as painting a little square or a circle on your belly or on your forearm. If it's gone within 15 minutes or a half hour, your body's basically drinking that up and telling you, I really appreciated that iodine. I really needed that. It soaked it up, right? If you wait and you look the next day, 24 hours, and that circle or that square is still there, that's a good indicator your body doesn't need it. So this is obviously not like a super accurate test in the sense that you're not getting like numbers, but like Katie mentioned, if you have a functional doctor in your area, they can test iodine capacity and all of that. So for me, this was a huge part of my my healing. I know it was iodine. If you have Hashimoto's, if you do large amounts of this at first, it can actually cause it to flare up. So I started really small and worked my way up. Another thing you can do is you can take selenium for a couple of weeks to protect that flare up. So I took it together. I actually was able to find a tincture online that it was like a combo of iodine and selenium and manganese and other things together. But you could also eat 1 to 3 Brazil nuts a day, and that is a great source of iodine. I don't recommend Brazil nuts like in a trail mix with other nuts. Just get them by themselves. They're actually very good, and you only need about 3 a day. Okay, let's talk about just a couple other things that you can do or things you can avoid. So you can do specific cleanses. You can, further helping your body detox and get rid of toxicity is going to help your thyroid function properly. So there's all sorts of things. You can do a lymphatic cleanse to get things moving. You can do a gut cleanse. You can do a liver cleanse. You can rub oils right on your body. If you know that you if you've gotten a scan of your thyroid and you've seen cysts on it or nodules or scar tissue, these are very common because they're signs of iodine deficiency, maybe viruses that have attacked the thyroid. So let me ask you guys in the chat. This is where I want to crowdsource here. Do you have any tools as an oiler that can reverse the appearance of scar tissue? Is there anything that you can rub on your skin that can help with scar tissue? I want to hear from you guys. And I can, of course, give some ideas too. Yes, Jamie just said it right away. Anybody else? Frankincense, y'all. Rose ointment, myrrh, helichrysum, grapefruit, lavender. So Valor, things that have frankincense in it. These can be blends. Citrus oils. Citrus oils are extremely cleansing to your lymphatic system. So I'm not saying that this is going to be like the end all be all, but this is a great tool, a simple tool to just start using right away, right? Katie mentioned Endoflex. This is a beautiful blend of oils that helps it supports the endocrine system, men and women. But something that's in there is the oil myrtle. And myrtle is known to be a balancer of the thyroid. Y'all ever heard the phrase fertile myrtle? Very hormone regulating. So I want you to ask yourself a question as you're kind of like deep diving into what your body's telling you. But ask yourself, like, what is this organ saying to me? Do I need a cleanse? Do I need rest? Do I need nourishment? Ask those questions before you just run to, I need more hormones. I know I need more hormones can be the easy fix sometimes, but if you're interested in like that root cause healing, it could be a cleanse to help that liver function better, properly. It could be rest. It could be de-stressing. It could be nourishment, right? Okay, so mineral-rich food, iodine-rich food. It's funny, this picture is funny because it's got an octopus. I don't actually eat any bottom feeders anymore. I like totally got them out of my diet, but mineral-rich food is going to support your thyroid. Adrenal cocktails. There's a lot of different recipes out there. This is a great way to love on your adrenals, which is also going to affect your thyroid. And for me, this is something I do every single day, sometimes twice a day. Okay. It's like the best energy boost. I take a little bit of orange juice. So you need a little bit of citrus. It doesn't have to be orange juice. It could be lemon juice. And you can find recipes online. I take a little bit of coconut water. I add some salt. Sometimes I add cream of tartar for the potassium. Sometimes I add a little maple syrup or honey. And this is a great combination. And if you've ever heard of Young Living's trace mineral product called Mineral Essence, you can also add this to the mix. So this is giving your body all these minerals that are going to help support your adrenals and your thyroid and your metabolism. And so that's sodium, potassium, calcium, manganese, all these different ones. This is not pictured here, but this is something that you could look into. There is an herb called ashwagandha. This is used for adrenals because it helps your body adapt to stress. It helps your liver convert T4 to T3. It's oftentimes found in a blend of other herbs. It's actually in one of Young Living's supplements called Power Jize. And Power Jize also supports testosterone and libido, which I know goes hand in hand with some thyroid issues. So look into Power Jize. That might be a good fit for you. If you have Hashimoto's, ashwagandha would be a good one for you to support for the T3 conversion and also T4. Don't take ashwagandha if you have hyperthyroidism because you're not trying to get more of a thyroid response, right? So none of these things that I'm mentioning are like a one size fit all. These are just things that you have in your toolbox depending on what's going on. Oops. Nutmeg mentioned or shown there is also something that your adrenals will love. You can actually rub it right on your adrenal glands. All right, the last thing I want to mention here is just some deeper testing. I have worked hand in hand with Dr. Tanya Nichols for 10 years. She helped me with my fertility, my thyroid, my daughter who we adopted from birth, detoxing her from all sorts of things. Find her website online, Comprehensive Wellness Solutions. I work with her remote. She does not live in the same state as me. She can actually take your raw genetic testing and read it for you and tell you, it really just eliminates so much confusion, tell you exactly what foods to avoid, what supplements that you should avoid, what supplements you need extra of. That was a huge part of my healing testimony, was working with Dr. Tanya. Requestthetest.com. This is like basically to pull your own labs. It will be out of pocket because this is obviously like going, not through a doctor's prescription. But if you want that hormone panel, you can get this through requestthetest.com. Be a couple $100s for the hormone panel, but absolutely worth it if you're wanting a deeper look. Of course, if you can work with your doctor and get them to prescribe or get that test for you, that's wonderful. And then of course you can text hormones. This is my support right here. When you text it to that number, that's the code word, 985-218-8868. I'll send you some recommendations and you'll get an auto response from me where I'll ask you, what are you looking for? Thyroid, liver, pituitary, and I'll make recommendations based off of that. As far as other food things, I just wanted to mention, American gluten looks a lot like gluten, the thyroid molecule. It's very inflammatory for you, and it's very difficult to process when your thyroid's not functioning properly. I know European gluten is a little bit different. This is something that if you're trying to clear the gunk and heal your thyroid, I would absolutely cut gluten out of your diet, at least until you feel like your gut's functioning properly. That will rapidly increase, healing. Same with dairy. Dairy can be good. If you're drinking raw A2 milk, that's very, very different than highly processed, conventional kind of yucky dairy. So keep those things in mind. Let me see if there's anything else. Spirulina, I mentioned, spirulina in multigreens. Spirulina is also in Thyromin. I know Katie mentioned Thyromin. Thyromin is a glandular supplement, right? Like it's got the thyroid and the adrenal glands. And I know that might sound weird at first, eating the glands of an animal, and actually the source is cow, so it's bovine glands. Think about like our great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents. For generations, they ate animal nose to tail, right? They didn't let it go to waste. The organs, before multivitamins, the organs were a rich source of nutrients. I know we're not crazy about things like head cheese and liverwurst, but they did. They chopped up the glands, they put them in sausage, they added them to soups. I know beef and organ liver capsules are thankfully being talked about right now about how amazing those are. But they would take the thyroid gland, it would take these glands, and they would actually put them in their meals. And that is basically what this glandular supplement is. Your body can take the proteins from these specific glands and rebuild those tissues and use them in your own body. That was something that I actually never used. So I'm glad that Katie was able to speak on that. But typically when you are prescribed a thyroid, prescription, it's a synthetic version of this and not necessarily the real thing. Ningxia Red, she mentioned, full of antioxidants, great for your adrenals, great for those blood sugar balances and not getting any crashes. Mineral essence, a big source of trace minerals. I love mineral essence because it's sourced from the Great Salt Lake. It's not made in a lab. It's not synthetic. And that's going to be great for both your adrenals and your thyroid. All right. I think that's it. I'm kind of like jumping all over these slides, making sure I'm not missing anything. I may or may not be able to answer specific thyroid questions, but if you guys have a question about anything that I need to go back to or said, let me know. And just to recap, the 2 at-home tests you can do: basal body temperature, iodine test to see if that's something that you need. I think that was it. And I'm sorry I had to take that video off. My internet was a little too. Whoops, I got a phone call. A little too finicky jumpy. All right, y'all. Any questions? And I did record this. We'll share this tomorrow. I'll put this on our YouTube channel. If not, I'll see you in 2 weeks for our final December class, which is going to be on winter rhythms. I've really been loving talking about the different rhythms of the season and how we can eat and the activity that we should be doing, the herbs we should be incorporating. Oh yeah, I mentioned A2 and raw dairy. those two, just for better, easier digestion, not full of the processed, you know, deadness is the way to put it. Still living nutrients in there. Any other questions? Just scanning this. All right, y'all. Hope this helps. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you at the next one. Bye, y'all.